This is placeholder media, replaced to take full advantage of this template.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Brandon's Face. It's the podcast about a playlist. My name is Jonathan Beardsley.
And I am Brandon May.
We hope you're all doing well. We are back with our last new music episode before we get into our Album of the Year series to wrap things up this year, but it's been a crazy week. When we last left off, we thought it was going to be a pretty quiet week to wrap things up with Opeth and In Angles, and those are two albums we'll talk about, but Kendrick Lamar surprise dropped an album. We'll get into that a little bit later. I guess not bigger news, but the big news of the week since then is that Drake is suing him for defamation of character. And I think for either payola, like paying radio stations to play the song more, or for having companies run the stream numbers up, both of which are hilarious accusations coming from Drake. I believe he is the first rapper ever in history to sue somebody for defamation during a back and forth rap battle over a diss track. This is a bitch move, like, on scales we've never really seen before, man. What are your thoughts on this?
Absolute major bitch move. Just take the L, bro.
Just take the L, dude. Like, you're still one of the biggest artists ever. Like, you don't need to go out this sad, but Jesus, man. It's not gonna stop Kendrick from doing what Kendrick does. I wouldn't say most people, but a few people in his camp have already been saying, hey, y'all think this is it? It's still not over. There's more coming. So we'll see how all of that shakes out. I think the other bit of music news we should at least touch on is Sick New World, a festival we talked about when it got announced recently, is now canceled. I did not look into the reasoning. I don't know if any was given, but have any like Reddit sleuths or anything you've seen been able to crack this one?
I think it's pretty obvious, and I think it's something that we touched on when we originally were chatting about it. It's a festival in Vegas. A lot of
Mhm.
people like Vegas. A lot of people do not like Vegas. A lot of people do not like Vegas in the April heat. Normally, it's around
Yeah.
100 degrees in Las Vegas at that time. But the main drawback for me, and I remember something that we mentioned at the top of that episode where we were chatting about the lineup, is that there is no possible way you're going to see even half of the bands you want to see on that festival lineup, because it's a 1 day festival and it
Mhm.
was, you know, stacked
And
on
and
top of.
the iterations that had happened already did not show that they have the efficiency to pull off that many performances either. We should say that. The ones that
Right.
have happened, people have had a good time, but they've been kind of a mess.
Yeah, and it was $375 plus fees.
Yeah, you got to know your audience. That is way too fucking much money, man. Fuck
That's a lot of
that.
money. I could see $400 2 days. I think $400 for a 2 day festival lineup completely stacked is expensive but reasonable, especially
Yeah.
for something that stacked. But $400 for 1 day and you're going to see a 30-minute AFI set? Come on, bro.
Dude, prices make no sense to me at all. I do have to like remind myself constantly of inflation in these things and what modern averages and standards are, but even by those metrics, that's kind of astronomical, especially for the crowd that you're trying to cater to.
Yeah, it's a Live Nation festival, so we have to keep their profit margin, in mind, because if we don't, who will?
Of
And
course.
you can go to people willing to travel for Acid Bath can still go, because that was really one of the main draws, which I don't think that they were really anticipating, because they were so small in the lineup. But Acid Bath is really making people travel. I saw some people on Reddit, someone was like, glad I didn't book my ticket from New Zealand like I was going to. And it's
Jesus.
like, okay, if you want to do that, you can go to Sonic Temple. Sonic Temple is a 4 day festival in Ohio in May, and it is $400, and it is 4 days, and it is a lot of those bands plus more.
Do not tell
And
somebody from New Zealand to go to Ohio, America.
Hey
They
man,
did.
hey man, if you want to go see Acid Bath, that's what you're gonna have to do, bro, because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think Acid Bath is getting a visa to go to New Zealand.
I'm not leaving the Shire, dude. Fuck that. Stay there. The bands will eventually come there. That's insane. But I mean, yeah, Vegas ain't much better. It's just a lot shinier. That's
Vegas
crazy.
is dirty as hell, bro.
But it's so fun. It's so fun.
Yeah, Vegas is fun. Vegas is a lot of fun. I live close enough to Vegas where I've been more times than I can count. I was not planning on going to this festival. So
Yeah, the desert is scary close, and that is funny. I didn't really go to Vegas for concerts when I lived out there, even though I did go to like Vegas and end up going to a few concerts while I was out there. It was never really like the purpose of my trip, but it is what, a short 4 hour drive now?
it's about a 4 hour drive ish, four,
Yeah.
maybe five if you hit some traffic. I've never gone out there specifically for a concert. I have seen a lot of concerts out there, but I've never gone out there specifically for
You're
one. You
just a
know what I
huge
mean?
Magic fan. Yeah. Just
You know
love
what, man?
in-person magic.
My first concert ever was in sync at the MGM Grand
Oh,
Billboard
oh, that
Arena.
was
You know
at
what I
MGM.
mean?
I
It
knew
was
it
at
was in
MGM.
sync. I did not know it was at MGM Grand. The details continue to flesh this
Yep.
picture out for
I
me.
have also seen the rapper Tyga at the club in Mandalay Bay.
You know, it blows people's mind when I tell people Tyga started opening for Fallout Boy and was on Fueled by Ramen.
Right.
Uh, that mixtape has been like scrubbed. Put Tyga, put no introduction, the mixtape back online, please. That is a chapter of my life that is just missing because it is not on there. Tyga rapping over weirdo emo acoustic shit. Yes.
If anybody takes anything from this conversation, it's that.
Yes, thank you. All right, man, let's dive into this week's episode. We got some fun music to talk about. Let's start it off with this new one from Snoop Dogg, Dre, and is it A-List? I'm gonna say that. Song's called Out of the Blue. Few things in life are better than Snoop and Dre trading bars over these types of instrumentals. I loved this one, man. What about you?
Really fun track, dude. Production is very good, very reminiscent of the mid 2000s. I was kind of worried that Dre was gonna bring his 90s roots back, and it's like, don't do that, bro, because you've already done that and you killed it. So the MIA interpolation is unnecessary.
I agree. I agree. It is
Other than that,
it is the one part of the song that I would trade out for something else, although I don't know what if I could. But man, there's something about a rapper like Dre delivering a line like there ain't a thing I've seen that I can't buy and it being true that's fucking
right?
crazy. Like that's him and Jay-Z are like the only types of people that can deliver those bars and they not be fictional, you know? So insane. I don't know. They released a new song this week with Sting. I checked out. I was not as high on it. Album drops in like a week or so. We'll definitely check it out at some point.
Not a big fan of the Police.
No, I've never happened. ACAP. All right, so we got a new one from AJ Tracy and Poser. It's called Heaters. These are some of these bars are just kind of goofy, but it's a very solid track with some good chemistry, some good back and forth, which I'm always a fan of. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, there is nothing less poser than naming yourself Poser. The track is great. They're silly bars, but like that's fun.
Yeah, AJ Tracy has put out nothing but good songs this year. He is due for a new album for sure.
Yeah, man.
Two new songs from Amine, Sticking to What I Know, and Wings featuring Cardo Got Wings. He's made it clear that these last few releases are just loosies in between albums, but if this is where his sound is at going into the new one, I am on board. What did you think of these two?
Uh, S2 Wick is very not what I'm used to with Amine, but it is nice. And Wings is a banger.
Yeah, he's definitely using more of the like sing melodic rap stuff from the Mine album and kind of applying that to his broader rap stuff, I've noticed. It's going to be interesting. I think these are early examples of it, but I do think he has the talent to really grow into that style.
Yeah.
Got a new one from Alex Vaughn, Hit a Wall. Like everything else she's released so far, this is R&B excellence, man. We have not heard from her since she dropped an EP like a year or two ago, but I really liked this. What about you?
Yeah, I was a gigantic fan of this, man. The production is extremely complimentary to her gorgeous voice on this one, man.
Yeah, great voice. Speaking of, new one from JoJo, Too Much to Say. Since returning from label disputes that derailed a good portion of her career, she has just been consistently putting out great music like this one. What did you think of it?
JoJo sounds great here. I actually really like this song. I wasn't expecting to.
Yeah, this is not JoJo Siwa for those that might be confused. This is also Child Star JoJo, but the R&B one from the mid 2000s that anyone from around that time might know.
Yeah,
She sounds great.
if you guys mistook this for JoJo Siwa, get out.
Uh, It'd be great if JoJo hit the JoJo Siwa dance live, though, just to further confuse this. All right, we got a new one from Miguel, Always Time. Hearing his voice again just makes me immensely happy, but the song itself, dear God, this is beautiful, man. I'm very much a fan of this. I'm hoping we get an official new album at some point. I think he's going on like 8 or 9 years at this point. What did you think of this?
It's a little slower than I prefer, but he sounds great.
Yeah, he always does sound great, man.
That's
It
true.
is one of his slower songs. His last album had a lot more like mid-tempo, up-tempo stuff that I'm kind of hoping he goes back to, but I will take anything at this moment. It's been so goddamn long. New one from LS Dunes, Paper Tigers. The lead guitar part in this song was stuck in my head all week long. Man, are you a fan of this one?
Yeah, I really am. I really am. Anthony Green sounds very good here. Like he tapped into some Juturna Circa Survive era,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
passion. You know what I mean?
Yes, and that is my favorite era of Anthony Green. So massive fan of hearing those same characteristics again as well.
Yep.
Uh Not my song of the week, but damn close. This new one from Second Harbor, The Worst Kind of Panic. Been listening to this group a lot lately. There's just something about their sound that I'm fucking with really heavy. And songs like this are going to ensure that that does not stop anytime soon. What did you think of it?
Where have you been hiding this band, John?
Ooh, I sent you their song Indifferent when I found it like a month or two ago, and we were both like banger in text. I don't know if you remember that, but
I
that was
didn't
the
remember
moment
it was
I
this
found
band.
them. It was this one, and I've been still listening to that song and pretty much everything they've released since on rotation over these past few weeks. But what did you think of this new one, man? I take it you're a fan.
Yeah, big fan. Great blend of genres that I love. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the podcast, but I really did like this song.
His voice, so different, so weird,
It's
but I love
real
it.
good. Real
Real
good.
good. Another voice that's very different and unique. Got the Coheed and Cambria new song, Searching for Tomorrow. I need to stop doubting Coheed because I thought there'd be no way Vaxis 3 could top 2, but these last few singles have been absolute fire, dude. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, okay. I really fucking love the heavier direction this album seems to be taking.
Mm-hmm.
As is tradition from them, we got some great riffs, fantastic hair.
Oh, of course. The hair's always immaculate. Never let that go. Uh Claudio, is that his name?
Claudio, yep.
Yes. Incredible Hall of Fame hair, if I've ever seen it.
Hall of Fame.
Um, Potential Hall of Fame hair. Courtney LaPlante from Spirit Box, their new song Perfect Soul. It's great, man. Her voice is just a fucking force, dude. Their new album drops March 7th, I believe. It's called Tsunami Sea. This is a very different single than their last one, but I've enjoyed both quite a bit. What about you?
Ah, the old metalcore start off heavy, then lean more towards a poppy sound because of money. Been here many times before here, John. Good thing that Courtney LaPlante's voice is so fucking entrancing that it doesn't really bother me this time.
Hmm.
Except I love her harsh stuff. This is
I know.
good.
Yeah, I agree. It's obviously good, but you are totally correct on that. Got a new one from Aviana called Father. What are your thoughts on it?
It's a band that I admittedly have not paid much attention to. They seem to be relatively popular. As I can tell, as far as I can tell, I love the electronic elements in this. This
Mhm.
breakdown is pretty brutal with two zeros.
Accurate. Yeah, dude, I like exactly the same things you said. I like parts of it, I think, more than I like the whole, but there's definitely something there. I do
Yep.
like these guys. Got a new one from Frontierer called Wearing Hell. This shit. bangs, dude. I wish the song was a little bit longer, but the song we got is an absolute ripper. What do you think?
So this is a band that I've been waiting for new music from. I'm not sure if we've talked about this band. I think that we have not. I don't know. I could be wrong. All over the place though. Like it's like if Meshuggah was having a seizure, but also didn't want to stop partying. A big fan. Wild music.
Very wild. Thanks for throwing that one on. Got a new one from Subtronics and Alice in Wonderland. No one does it like, with the exception of Dimension with Subfocus. It's been kind of a quiet year for Allison, but this is a hell of a track to return with. What did you think of it?
I really liked this song, man. They should do collaborations more often.
Yeah, or just release more music new often.
In
Uh,
general.
yes, please, Allison. It's been a while now. All right, we got a new one from Tim Taste called Dance. It's not reinventing any wheels, but it succeeds in making me want to move. What about you?
Yeah, love everything about this one, but it's not new.
What about this new one from Cascade featuring Punctual and Poppy? Is it Bascom? I'm not really sure on the pronunciation of the name. Anyways, the song is called Heaven Knows. What are your thoughts on this one?
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was good, but like pretty standard Cascade stuff.
Yeah, it seems a little boring for Cascade. I liked it because of the elements I like, but
We notably did not add that single he dropped like a week or two ago that was the drum and bass one that
I
you
honestly
completely
forgot to
felt.
because I wanted to gloat a little bit. I
Yeah, I
wanted
know
to
you
gloat.
did. Well, here's
So
your chance.
for people who weren't aware, I want to say maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe less than that. I just predicted that Cascade was a few weeks out from dropping a drum and bass track, and he did that. He did that. That's because he's always about 6 months behind a trend, and that's about it. I did call it, and I called it on the air. So
You get it.
somebody
You
give me
get
a
it.
cookie.
It's noted. I will send you a cookie. All right. We got a few EPs to talk about this week. First up, Amber Mark, Lucy's. It's an EP of Lucy's. You can tell, but that does not mean it's any less good than her music usually is. It's has a very light feel for the most part. Won't Cry, I think, is the most like dance pop forward I've heard her go so far, and I thought it was pretty good. I really like the like carefree nature of Wait So Yeah, back to back with that like funky bass line on Stop Calling Me. And I looked forward to this EP coming on every time I went through the playlist this week. I also like the closure of putting out any lingering tracks like this before you move on to the next thing. What did you think of these? Any of them hit for you?
Yeah, I was actually a big fan of her putting it out as Lucy's and calling it Lucy's because that's what they be.
Mm-hmm.
Uh these are all great. A little sleepy for me. I actually did fall asleep listening to this EP at one point this week. Um but I will say it was a pretty nice nap, so I'm not going to sit here and complain about that. So,
We're gonna mark that as a compliment. All
oh, it
right.
is.
We got a Hawthorne Heights Emery split covers EP. I thought I would actually like this since I love these bands, but it's the stripped down versions of the songs they're doing that aren't working for me as much. What about you?
I blind added this. I did not preview this at all. I saw what it was and was like, "Oh, John and I are going to fucking love this."
Mm-hmm.
I think I think it's good. I didn't hate it. I didn't particularly like it, and I wouldn't like them to do this again. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
and I think it's a combination of what you and I are both saying. It's not even like the groups or the artists or the songs. It's like just this just doesn't really land. I don't know. Walls, I remember when they put out the Week's End Deluxe Edition way back when, like 20 fucking years ago or whatever. It had an acoustic version of Walls on it, and I thought that was the weirdest fucking thing ever. This version is weirder than that. Like it's
Right.
such a weird song to hear through any other lens than the original at this point. It's like trying to cover 7 years or something. Like it's just not right. You can't do it. But
Man,
I love
I'm kind of sad that Hawthorne Heights is living off of like their whole live show has been about nostalgia, and they're kind of living off of their first album, but they've put out nothing but bangers. And everybody who was a fan of saying goodbye or saying sorry rather, and
them.
cut my throat and black my eyes, just go listen to their other music. It's actually really good.
Yeah, I don't think they've fallen off very much. Their last album introduced me to Counterparts. They had a feature from the vocalist on the first
Right.
song of there. They're still introducing me to new music and still putting out new music I like. I constantly add their new stuff to my Scene Isn't Dead playlist. They have not really lost a step, like you're saying. They're like Silverstein, dude. They have like eternal youth when it comes to writing this type of music and it not sounding forced no matter how much older they get. But it is kind of sucky that like the audience hasn't been as consistent with them.
Yeah, funny. I actually saw them open for Silverstein.
God damn it. That was probably a really fun show.
Yeah, yeah, it was a good time. They had a big banner behind them that said I used to listen to Hawthorne Heights in high school.
The last time I saw Hawthorne Heights, I broke both my feet. And that's about all I remember from that night. It fucking sucked.
I
But
love that for you.
they were great. I feel so great with that being the last time I've seen them still. I almost never want to see them again because that's always
Right?
going to be my
Like
story now. I have a great icebreaker if I ever meet them, though. All right, so we got this new EP from Driveways, Tempest. I cannot say enough great things about this band. You introduced them to me when we started doing this podcast a few years ago. They've gone from a yearly listen every autumn to a year-round obsession of mine. We weren't even sure we'd be getting new music from them this year. They came in right as October was ending with new music and the announcement of this EP on the way. That song, Ghost of a Smile, the first single, terrific, as was the next one, which was Surgery. Uh, yeah, I think that one was your song of the week actually when it dropped. I
was.
had really high expectations for this one going in based on those tracks. It lived up and then some. A little too early to say, but I think that it is one of their best projects front to back to date. Wind and Waves, perfect opener. I love the slow build. That breakdown is so good. Autumn Always is an instant classic for me. I figured we'd get into album cut territory at some point, but Hesitate is just as great as the other tracks. They've gotten to this point where every line they sing gets stuck in my head. Like they have this way with melody that just pleases my brain in the way a few bands do. Sea Glass is probably like the most poppy and melodic on the album. I feel like they usually have a track like this on every project and they get better at this style every time they do it, even if it's not my favorite in terms of like the repertoire that they have. The closer is weighty and patient, but beautifully written, and one of the many songs they've released so far that could be considered one of their magnum opuses. I fucking love this EP, man. What about you?
Yeah, it it's funny, man. You say that Driveways, this might be their best release to date, and I feel like I say that every single time I put on. It doesn't matter what project of theirs. I'm, oh man, this might be their best. They have this like perfect blend of pop punk mixed with like metalcore style riffs and vocals. What I really love about Driveways, though, John, is how incredibly consistent they are with everything they drop always. And it's not
Hmm.
like consistency of sound, right? Like I know a little bit of the sound that I'm, should be expecting from Driveways, but they always throw a few curveballs, like you said. Sea Glass is a little bit of a curveball. Tempest, it's a little bit of a curveball. Tracks like Autumn Always with just that blood curdling scream. Like there's a lot to love about this EP, man. And there's a lot that I'm gonna forever love about this EP. I like you said, I mean it went from, oh, this is neat little Halloween music because they drop on Halloween, Hardy Har, into oh my God, this band might be one of the greater ones doing it out right
Yeah.
now.
Hmm.
So
Well said. I'm gutted right now that they have not announced a date in my neck of the woods, but the second they do, I'm buying tickets 100%.
yeah, people are pretty mad that Silverstein and Thursday aren't touring up in your neck of the woods, and I find that odd, but
It's just,
sorry.
I feel like that one is less aggravating because they've been here semi recently. So it's probably
Yeah.
just this tour. They're not hitting this region, but they'll come through the next one.
Yep.
Driveways, I don't, if they have been up here, I've missed them. But if they have, it's been once and not very often. So still waiting for my chance.
And can we
Uh,
also just for a sec just mention the incredible album artwork on this one?
Yeah, and they always get their little pumpkin in there somewhere. This one's
Got
a
to.
little more noticeable since it's an almost all blue cover, but
Yep.
it's great, man. This one's beautiful.
Good shit.
All right, one more EP this week. It's from Antic Soul called Serenity. I hesitate to call this our minimal techno release of the week due to its frenetic energy throughout, but it's the closest thing we have this week, so it'll do. All four of these tracks are so good, but Chord Expression, by far my favorite. What'd you think of this one?
That's funny, man. I couldn't pick I kept picking a different favorite every time it came on. Released on a podcast favorite, Planet Rhythm. I think we've covered a number of their EPs this year. I threw this one on. There was a couple of other techno releases I could have thrown on, but I threw this one on because it has, like you said, that like frenetic energy, but it's techno, but it's got like a house, like
Mm-hmm.
it's got like a house soul to it, and it's kind of something that I've been craving a little bit. It's like somebody produced this on the border of Chicago and Detroit, like in the middle of that lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chord Expression is great. I love that Borderlands and Fallout are both video game names, and I can't tell if this guy knows that or not.
Oh,
But
he knows. He, he
Fallout's
knows.
really good, man. Every time this one came on, I was just like, like my whole fucking torso was just going, and then I was like, oh, that's who this is.
Yeah, dude, it's a great one. Most definitely as a gamer, from what I can tell. Really solid EP. What
Yes,
type of
yes.
techno would you say this is?
Sheesh. Probably Detroit techno if I had to put a name to it. And
Love
it
it.
probably borders on tech house due to the fact that we have snares and claps on 2 and 4, but I don't really think that that matters to me.
I love me some claps. I guess I'm just a tech house fan. Didn't know that
Y-
about myself.
You know,
All right, man. We got a few albums to talk about this week. Are you ready to start?
I am. Let's go.
Okay, man. I honestly don't even know what to say about this Kendrick Lamar one, GNX. It being a surprise drop didn't help. But I don't know if I would have been any more ready for this type of Kendrick album had I known about it ahead of time. Mr. Morale is very weighty and complex and deals with a variety of heavy themes throughout its expansive runtime. This album, in comparison, is just Kendrick going hyphy for 45 minutes, and I want nothing more. The opening track touches on most of the recent events that occupied our summer, from his beef with Drake to the announcement of his Super Bowl halftime show to his potential new feud with Lil Wayne. These things are potentially referenced in other ways throughout the album as well, but Whacked Out Murals feels like the most direct address of those events that he's done so far. And before I get into the rest of the album, I saw people say Kendrick should not pick a fight with Drake. I saw people say Kendrick should not pick a fight with Cole. I'm now seeing people say Kendrick should not pick a fight with Lil Wayne. These are probably the same people that thought a 58-year-old Mike Tyson stood a chance against a 30-year-old roided out Jake Paul. This 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 will be the only time I ever compare Kendrick to Jake Paul, but it is the quickest analogy I could think of for the young eat the old mentality. But even that analogy is flawed. Point is, this is not the mid 2000s anymore. Wayne can still rap his ass off, but Kendrick will end him at this stage in his career. Hopefully that does not have to happen, but don't let people with a twisted perspective tell you it'll play out any differently. Getting back to the album, though, we finally got the rest of that song that was featured at the beginning of the Not Like Us music video. It's every bit the banger we thought it'd be, and as of my last time looking, was the most streamed song on the album so far. He just put out a music video for it that's equally great. Squabble Up is the song I'm talking about. We get the first of two SZA collabs on Luther, which feels like a track we'll be hearing probably a lot in the world going forward. It's very palatable. Also, shout out SZA for probably being the only person on the phone with both Kendrick and Drake, telling both guys exactly to everything they say. If anything, she's the real winner of this beef. I don't
He
think
always
Man,
wins.
she always wins. I don't think Man at the Garden samples one mic, but the Nas influence is very clear there. Also, shout out Nas for being apparently the only person to congratulate Kendrick for getting the Super Bowl, although I'm pretty sure we did on the podcast as well, but I'll let that slide.
Way to snub us.
Thanks. I'm sure his family and friends were proud, but Legends and Peers can be very salty. I'm glad Nas wasn't. Hey Now is one of the songs that makes you start kind of just stepping around with a bounce without you even realizing it. Reincarnated takes that Tupac sample and gives us the closest thing we've heard to what a new Tupac song would sound like in 2024 without AI. I wouldn't trust any other artist with this type of homage shit, but Pac, Kendrick, you could tell he's been waiting for this moment, and he crushed it, dude. The vocal inflection to get his voice like that, just hearing that flow in that cadence and the rasp again just kind of took me back, and I love the beat. Okay, I guess now's a good time to talk about the production. Imagine my surprise when I saw Jack Antonoff was a part of almost every song on this album. I've been very vocal about how much I dislike his production style, both with Taylor Swift and beyond, but I gotta give credit where it's due. This is one of the best produced rap albums I've heard in a long time. I would not be mad if he did more productions like this for other artists. From there, I'm just going to leave the Jack Antonoff compliments there. That's all. From there, we move into the centerpiece of the album from a meme perspective so far. The amount of mustard memes that have surfaced in the hours after this dropping is staggering. I believe as of today, Heinz put up a billboard in your neck of the woods declaring Kendrick the GOAT with the long mustard billboard for Coachella. Great PR move. I love that. If Mustard does not use that as one of his tags going forward, he's missing out. He tweeted that he was walking down the street listening to that song the other day and he yelled it. And he was like, I forgot I was me. Like, oh man, that song is just so fucking good. The memes that have come from it are equally as good. I'm sure it's going to be part of all of Mustard's live sets going forward. It's going to be very fun to scream at him. I do kind of feel bad that he's never going to be able to go anywhere ever again without somebody yelling that at him, but there's worse fates. Dodger Blue is the first song that kind of feels like a deeper cut to me, but I really love the melodic rap vibes mixed with like the contemporary R&B. Peekaboo, one of the only songs on the album Jack did not have a hand in producing, and it's one of the most personality heavy songs on the album. By that, I mean it just might have the most Kendrick isms per bar on here. This track feels primed for a few great remixes. I could see Keem or Westside Boogie going crazy over this beat. We get a new version of Heart Part 6 to replace the easily forgotten last track Drake dropped as a white flag in their battle. There's a lot of great bars on this song about the early TDE days, his thoughts on Black Hippie. I love a good storytelling rap song. Kendrick's one of the best to ever do it. Heart Part 6 almost sounds like a track you'd hear on a deluxe version of Good Kid, Mad City, from like the way it's produced to the bars to the way he's rapping. It works as a time capsule as much as a history lesson. And not to keep harping on potential remixes that we're never going to get, but a version of Heart Part 6 with the rest of the TDE guys telling things from their perspective on the Black Hippie story would be fucking great. Moving on, we got the title track, GNX, one of the more abrasive posse cuts I've heard in some time. Feels like a showcase for up-and-coming talent more than Kendrick, but I think his ear for talent and curation is remarkable because it all comes together so well. All these guys I've never heard before just like making me groove, and I fucking love that. We got the album wrapping up with Gloria featuring SZA. Beautiful collaboration to bring it all to an end. It's a little jarring after the tone of the last track, but that aside, it does work beautifully as a way to wind this down. SZA's voice pairs so well with Kendrick's. His last bar on the album being "Ain't no bitch like my bitch, cause my bitch been my pen," before her little outro part is so good. I'm often hyperbolic on this podcast when it comes to my initial reactions to things. I get very excited by like the grandeur of the musical experience with everybody. I also tend to cool on things very quickly, but this is like a 9 at minimum. It's an instant classic for me across the board, any genre. Gives me a lot to think about as we head into our album of the year episodes, that's for damn sure. But my standouts are Whacked Out Murals, Squabble Up, and TV Off. That's just today, though. What did you think of the new Kendrick Lamar album?
Number one, great review, John. Thank you for
Thank you,
that.
buddy. Of course.
I'll always love hearing you talk on Kendrick here. All right, so Kendrick shock dropping was a great idea for him. I guess somebody asked Mustard about it. He didn't even know it was dropping, like you said. Uh, I I I I think Kendrick doesn't really have the capacity to make a meaningless album. Everything he does is just dripping in artistic expression. And even when he tries to make a banger, he still has to throw some of like the best double entendres and like seriously conscious bars and like lessons in there. I actually kind of wish this wasn't the case for him, if I'm being honest. I wish he would just make a meaningless West Coast banger of an album, but he actually addresses this in a bar with why you rapping if it's fake, because he's not that, so he doesn't live that life. So nobody can really ask that of him. What we
Mhm.
got here is an Antonoff produced Kendrick album, which is an odd thing to say, but it will finally prove to some Antonoff haters, John, that he actually has some range, even if there is way too much breathing and breathy delivery on this thing, as I have come to despise from Antonoff. I wonder if Antonoff paid Kendrick instead of the other way around on this one. Maybe he needed some street cred or something, He's like, hey man, I'm sick of working with Taylor Swift. Give me
No.
give me a layup.
Oh my God.
I love this as a feature on Luther. This track is great. Beat is honestly fantastic with like those dwindly string samples and chimes put in next to like deadened 808 kicks and hi-hats. Man at the Garden has some seriously creative production. I actually listened to this for the first time in my car, and I thought there was like something alive in my engine bay. It was crazy, man. Like I said earlier, artistic expression on this one is wild. Dude just writes incredible lyrics. Hey Now, Mustard produced track that has has a great beat, but most of this track is just Antonoff asking Kendrick to breathe into the mic more, which is fucking stupid. Reincarnated is fucking incredible. Every time Kendrick does his Tupac thing, like he did on the Hard Part 5, he has a little section of it on Not Like Us. I just loved it. And so when this track came on for the first time, I was fucking entranced. The dude just crushes this. The production on this one, the strings, the percussion, the delivery on everything, the spoken word. This track is perfect. It's uh, in not I don't even think it's in the contenders. I think it might be the best rap song of the year.
Damn.
TV Off has the incredibly satisfying and forever memorable mustard tag, and is honestly just extremely reminiscent of Not Like Us, and that's to be expected because apparently Mustard was working on both of these beats around the same time. Well, all three of them, I guess, because this one has that little beat switch in the middle there. The
Hmm.
fact that Lefty Gunplay is on this track is hilarious to me, and it's just some. I don't know. I don't want to talk shit about gunplay so I'm not going to do that. But Dodger Blue is a pretty short track, has Antonoff's hands all over the direction. It calls me out though, because I do say I hate LA all the time. I don't really travel past the 10, man. Uh, I don't really care though. Peekaboo is kind of grating to me after the first minute, but it's still good in the verses. Heart Part 6, fucking great, man. He really goes for it. And as is tradition, we get a fantastic Bleeding Heart Kendrick on it. GNX is great because I don't know anyone on this track besides Kendrick. And I think that's really fucking cool of Kendrick Lamar.
Yes, right?
Uh, they all kill it until the end of the track when we get some major Antonoff TM breathy vocals again. Gloria is the perfect closer to the record. I really enjoyed this. It's not everything I thought it was going to be, and it's not really even what I wanted it to be, if I'm being real, but it's everything that we all needed from Kendrick Lamar.
Hmm.
I can't believe we're taking an opposite take here. I'm docking 2 points because of the Antonoff production, bro. The 808s being so he takes the like attack out of them, and it is just they're like deadened, they don't hit, and then because of that, Kendrick's mix is like he's mixed so high up in there because he's talking like this,
Hmm.
and my God, Jack Antonoff, please do something better. uh it's between an 8 and a 9 for me. I think it'll graduate to be a 9 at the end of the day, but my standout is Reincarnated, and that's every day.
I Reincarnated is fucking phenomenal. I do hear your points. I don't fully agree. Or let me say, there for every bad thing that is done technique wise at any point in the production, it's offset by something else that's happening amazing. Like you have a song like TV Off that has like whatever breathy moments, but then it's got the crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious part, which just makes you forget about everything because it's so
Right.
goddamn
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So we'll just
No,
call it a wash.
I take that. I don't think that it's a technical thing because Kendrick kills everything on this. That's not what I'm talking more about, like a Rick Rubin production style where he's not doing the actual production. Antonov probably has somebody for producing the music. He is telling people he's like it's a director of this movie that is this album. And I'm assuming, I have no idea if this is actually true, but it can't be far off base because every Antonov album in the last 3 years has done this, and it's bothered the shit out of me. So that's how I feel, and I'm
That's
sticking
fair.
to it.
All right, gut reaction. What are you enjoying more, this or Chromacopia so far?
This.
Ah, same. All right, man.
Yep.
Let's move on to this new Opeth one. I've been dying for your thoughts on this one all week. It's called The Last Will and Testament. Please, Devin.
All right. Finally, the new Opeth is here. It's a very Opeth album to incorporate basically all of their sounds that they've been with for so long. Michael bringing Michael, I don't know, bringing his death growls back, and the heavier riffs are so great, man. S1 sets the stage, and we continue from there, weaving between clean and harsh vocals, little instrumental passages, and some interesting organ work through S2. What's funny is that I kind of thought that it was going to lose a little bit of steam at some point. A lot of Opeth albums do, especially a lot of late Opeth albums do, but it really doesn't. In fact, we get some of the best tracks around the middle of the album with the 3-track run of S4 through S6.
Mhm,
Honestly, those tracks are my standouts. Like that 3-track run. I
mhm.
liked a lot of this. I loved like the slower moments juxtaposed with the heavier moments. I haven't sat down with the lyrical content yet, but if anything is true, then Opeth most definitely still has it. So I'm gonna assume it's great until I will post a retraction if I'm wrong there. What kind of bothers me about this record, John, is that we don't get like extended acoustic passages that made albums like Blackwater Park and Ghost Reveries so meaningful and varied. We do get like slower passages, but they're not this like folksy walking through foggy Nordic Swedish woods acoustic sounds. They're slower and softer with some organ behind them, but they're not what I love about Opeth. Um, but this album does have a lot of the same to it, and that same is so good that it doesn't really bother me. But in fact, it's really good. But I do still pine for them to write new music in the vein of their older, more atmospheric stuff. The organ really does a lot of heavy lifting for the softer passages, but I feel like it could have been better if they added some acoustic guitar stuff in between. All of that being said, though, I really did love this album. I spent a lot of time with this. I'm sure I'll love it with the time that I continue to spend with it. Great album, Opeth. Thank you for the 20 years of great music. I'm going to give it high 7, low 8. Standout is S4 to S6. That is just a
Yep,
passage of the album that is just fantastic all the way through.
I
What are
agree.
your thoughts?
I'm glad we got the death growls back on this album. They were missed, but they're well used throughout the album. But the non-death growl vocals are pretty great on here as well. Musically, this album is insane. It's death prog that's not afraid to go anywhere at any time. There's times you feel like you're listening to lounge music only for it to change gears into sporadic breakdown or some grandiose bridge or theatrical vocal section. It's almost like watching a play the way they go from section to section at times. I like the writing, even if it can be a bit over the top at times. This whole album is over the top though, so I'm not gonna fault it for that. It's a lot, but it's great. It's the rare album though where I think the lead single is one of my least favorites on the album. I would have gone with 2 or 5 personally, but that's just because those are my favorite tracks. Overall, though, this one is a 7 for me. I'm gonna say if I have to pick one standout, it's probably 5.
Yeah, that's a good track.
It's a very good track. It's a very good album. It's gonna take a while to fully digest this one, but I think it delivered.
Yeah, after I finally decide on my albums of the year, I might finally sit down with the lyrics on this one. I'm like I said, the lyrics I heard with the clean vocals are great. I want to hear and listen and take it all in. So, as with most prog, it's gonna take me a little bit to like fully
Mhm.
digest it, like you said. So,
Do you
um,
order this one?
I did not because I was apprehensive, but I will.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say the best way to read along would be with like the vinyl booklet, all the lyrics, you
Yeah.
know. All right, we got this Xiu Xiu album. I threw a few albums on here that we didn't get a chance to talk about when they dropped, so some of these are older. Uh, this is one of those albums. We talked about a few of these songs as singles, and you and I were both fans of them. So I was like, let's check the full album out, man. The first track is one of the ones that we talked about, if I remember correctly. And I think you said something along the lines of it feels like an intro or it was leading into something. You were
Yep.
very correct. It's a great way to start the album off. Maestro One Chord is one of my favorite tracks on this album. It's this weird combination of experimental alternative fused with throwback trip hop and some other weird shit in there. So good. Common Loon was another one of the singles we talked about. It has those fucking like fuzzy guitars in there that are always doing it for me. Pale Flower is one of the weirder songs on an already very weird album, but I'm a fan. Beneficium is still my standout. Those walk downs are fucking so phenomenal, dude. Love those. Uh TDFTW is one of these like fully thrashy theatric songs and one of my favorites on the album as well. Pina Coconut and Cherry is a great closer with those like screamo adjacent vocals near the end. It's a
Yep.
really great album, man. Strong 7 to a light 8. My standouts are Beneficium and Maestro. What did you think of this one?
Um, this is some synthy rock music in a heavier vein than I expected before I ever listened to them. The week you had added one of their singles to the album. It's an interesting sound. I think we covered the opener and the first two songs on the album because I think they came out both on the same day, or maybe we just added them to our playlist on the same day. This sounds like if Perfume Genius had the urge to make heavier music, but nothing that's actually really heavy, just kind of. Does that make sense?
A little bit.
It's interesting art rock, and I may or may not get it fully, but I do like it. And I think that this band deserves the music nerd rate your music praise that they get. Maestro One Chord starts the party off, and we get some really interesting synth work, which we got basically on the entire album. I like the weirder stuff on here, like Pale Flower. It feels like
Mhm.
someone's just using a noise oscillator, but it ends up becoming more focused as the melodies from the weirdest sounds you've ever heard come in. Tracks like Sleep Boulevard are extremely good, kind of like industrial heaviness at parts that I think they could do really well of, like if they did a whole album of. Instead, they do the chord stuff that Pussifer does and kind of takes it away just as it's getting really, really deep. I liked this one.
Use the P word.
I'm glad I'm glad I finally listened to the whole thing. 7 out of 10. It's either Sleep Boulevard or Pale Flower. I think those are great. But yeah, I mean they do the Pussifer thing where it's like, oh, this is getting good. Oh wait, it's slow again.
You always just wanted to keep getting better. That is the Brandon way for sure.
Yes.
All right,
Um,
man. We got another album I've been dying to talk to you about. This one's from Honeyglaze. It is called Real Deal. This is a group I'd never heard of until recently. I heard their song Don't. I was immediately hooked. I think I sent you it, and you're like, I added their album to my eventually listen to playlist. And I was like, yeah, you're never going to get around to it. So I threw it on this week. I love their sound. I love her voice. I love the writing. These aren't usually albums I gravitate towards. This one broke through to me though, dude. The punchy ass guitars, that just like kind of raw sound of the drums. It works for me. It's a strong 8. I really like Hide, Pretty Girls, and Movies, but I think the unquestionable standout here is Don't. What did you think of this one?
Well, thank you for throwing this on, John. You
Of
know that I
course.
love music like this, and This one kind of threw me a few different curveballs, though, if I'm being honest. Starting out, I thought it was going to be a pretty chill indie rock album, but the drumming just continues to become more bombastic as the tracks go on. And I mean, clearly like Don't, even like TMJ, both of those tracks are fantastic. And
Mm-hmm.
the way it's mixed, I think, has like so much to do with it because like her voice is in the forefront for like a lot of this, but simultaneously you get these drums coming in from nowhere, and all of a sudden you're bobbing your head and you're like, oh, this is fucking good. It's really great. So thank you for number one calling me out on the podcast on the mic that I would
You
never
were
get
getting
around to
around
it.
to that.
I listen to that playlist all the time on shuffle. uh,
That
I liked pretty much all of this album, man. It's between a 7 and an 8 for me. Don't or TMJ. I couldn't really decide on which track I liked more.
Yeah. Those are both phenomenal, but I think Don't is just one of those all-timers. All right, man. We got the In Angles album, The Light We Can't Escape. I imagine this is probably one of your favorite albums of the year, so I'm gonna let you go first here.
Oh, gee, how'd you know? Um, so this may have been one of my most anticipated albums of 2024, which is saying something because it has been a fantastic year in music, John. We're going to get into that in the next few weeks, but this band released Cardinal back in 2022, and we reviewed it back then. And I actually went back and listened to our review. And honestly, I was a little bit too casual about it back then because I spend that album at least once a month still. It's made it into my ever growing list of shit to listen to when I'm in the mood for post hardcore, and the vinyl has gotten many, many, many spins from me. I gave it an 8 back then, but it's really grown on me since. It's probably closer to a 9 Cardinal. So when they announced this one, I was fucking ready, man. The singles solidified my excitement, aside from the fact that I prefer more screamy stuff from them. But we talked about the entire rollout, and no one would be surprised if I had said I was excited. This album fucking rules, John. Mathy and technical, without any self worship or any real major noodling, just fucking riff after riff after riff. The lyrical content is also great. We covered the singles, Melonhead, Trench, and Backbone, but the album cuts on this thing are just as good, if not better, than the singles. Tracks like Fluorescent have the lyrical content with some like modern production nods and like a notable melodic bounce to it, but we still get these chords that we love, along with some pretty intricate riffage. Portrait gets right to the point, and those chugs at the start continue exactly how Melonhead ends. This track is great, and it really accentuates every single member of the band. The drumming on this thing is so impressive, and it wouldn't have the same feeling without how impressively these drums are being played and arranged. And then we get to my standout. Open season. This is where the band just shows off for 3 minutes. The
Mm-hmm.
riffs are technical, they're mathy on all accounts. Even the bassist is just fucking getting it, man. The lyrics cut deep, the breakdown is fucking great, and it slips directly into the next track, Unguided, which is another banger. The drumming on this one, again, insane. The fills, the double bass lead ups, the perfect accentuation to what everyone else is doing without being the star of the show. There's even some hardcore two-step in here leading up to the breakdown.
Yep.
Two weeks has some of the more passionate vocal delivery that I wish was slightly more prevalent on the record. 6 a.m. has this like dissonance to it alongside one of the strongest choruses on the record, which is saying something, as this band can write a pretty damn good hook and chorus. No Sweat has some fantastic gang vocals with some of the better lyrical content on the record as well. But The Last Summer as the closer just really fucking sent me, man. This record has a lot of things I like in post hardcore, and they just don't let up. There's not a skip on here. I have run this back at least once a day since it dropped. I think I listened to it twice today. I'm a huge fan of this one, and I will never understand how this band isn't the most popular band in the post hardcore scene resurgence. They need to tour with Silverstein or something because they're making some of the best post hardcore of the 2020s. Easy 9, open season. Your
Great review,
thoughts?
man. Great review.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was highly anticipated from us both. I agree that it lived up. You introduced me to them. I've had their song A Single Thread in my rotation ever since. The first taste of this album we got was Melonhead, which might still be my standout after hearing this one in full, although Open Season's up there as well. But there's some just great music from beginning to end. The opening track was another single. The drums on that one, Trench, are some of my favorite on the album. Their sound is like so distinct, and I feel like they're growing into it more with every new song they put out. Diving into some of like the deeper cuts on this one, we got some great chugging riffs on Portrait, little of that more post-hardcore breakdown stuff at the end of Open Season that you and I love so much. I came back to Open Season a lot this week. In terms of the back half of the album, Backbone is really, really good. I think that was a single as well, but of the album cuts, 6 a.m. is so different for them, I feel like, but it lands. And I love that they it's not a big swing, but I love that they took a swing of any kind. This whole album lands for me though, man. Strong 8, might even be a 9 eventually. Melonhead and Open Season are my standouts.
Yeah, man, it's a really good one. That riff from Melonhead is so good. Just
God, yeah. I mean, just the way it dives into his vocals, that opening like vocal cadence is so catchy. I don't know. It's grown on me so much.
anybody
Yeah.
who's a fan of any sort of post-hardcore, go listen to this band immediately. I they're making the best of the 2020s right now in front of your face.
Great stuff. All right, man. We got a metal album I threw on here from a band called Cognitive. This album is called Abhorrence. I don't have much to say about it. I found them a few weeks ago. I liked what I heard. I figured they should be on your radar as well. After looking into them a bit, it seems like they've been around for like 10 years now, so they probably are on your radar. This album dropped back in May, seemed to get by us. I heard the title track and was like, yeah, this fucking rules. That Suffer in Silence breakdown at the end of it. So good, dude. I always appreciate like technical death metal, but I'm rarely a huge fan of it. But their specific blend just kind of works for me. This is where you come in and you're like, this isn't actually technical death metal, John. The vocals have a really nice bite to them. Some of their riffs, like the one that they kick off as the light fades with, just like kind of make you stop in your tracks for a second. I really enjoyed this whole album. It's somewhere between a 7 and an 8 for me. My standout is Abhorrence, but I really liked Rorschach too. I've been dying to know your thoughts on this one though, man.
John, I just need to say that you have been straight up crushing it with the metal this year. You've thrown
Thank
a
you.
lot of metal on this playlist. We've talked about a lot of metal you've thrown on, and I have to say not just in quantity but quality
Good
has
finds. Thank you.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Here we have a very good technical death core record, a lot of
Damn
breakdowns.
it.
Uh, although they call themselves technical death metal, probably to stop people like me from correcting them, but that's I don't really care. Their first release on Metal Blade Records, which is a major label for them, I realized that I, for some reason, had never heard of this band. Smaller listener base, and I can't tell you why. Their last 3 albums were actually released on one of the podcast's favorite labels, Unique Leader.
Oh
This
yeah.
yeah, this album is breakdown central. Little to no slamming, but plenty of technical moments and even some melodic moments, like on the As the Light Fades, as the
Mm-hmm.
drums just kind of slowly build up the dun 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 into that guitar solo. Great stuff. Couple of things. Some tracks can get a little samey for me. Lots and lots of chuggy moments, which is great when I'm in the mood for chugs. But sometimes they go a little bit overboard. I did really like this one a lot, though. It hits a very specific spot. I'm going to be checking out their back catalog. You know how much I like Unique Leader Records.
Yep.
I was surprised that they have not been on my radar. I don't know how they fell through every single one of the cracks that apparently form in my releases, but it's a 7 for me. Aberrance is just a fucking great opener, solid title track, great song.
Song is so good. All right, dude, I'm glad you liked it. Yes, I guess anytime something falls through the cracks, hopefully I am able to catch it now that I have metal in my algorithm and I
Yeah,
get some good
man,
finds like this.
good catch.
All right, one more album to talk about this week. It is from Prom. It's called From the Wayside. What are your thoughts on this one?
So we missed this one earlier this month. I don't have a lot to say about it, but I do. You know how much I've been digging this whole "am I hardcore, am I not hardcore" kind of line that like incorporates elements of like screamo and pop punk and also hardcore, and that's exactly what this is. I love it, man. It's
Mhm.
this weird in between that doesn't always work super well, but I think Prom did a pretty bang up job. If I were a betting man, I'd bet that macho hardcore of old will be replaced in popularity with this style of endearingly raw hardcore adjacent stuff. It's great. I love so I don't know if you were listening to them when it dropped, but Silverstein dropped when Broken is Easily Fixed, I believe, back in 2003. And this was before Shane had realized that you can filter your vocals through, some sort of pitch correction and have those screams sound a little better.
Mhm.
And arguably, he sounds way better now than he did then, anyways. But this kind of raw recording of vocals where you can tell that there's nothing behind these vocals besides the mic is
Mhm.
so endearing to me, and I love hearing all of the little imperfections and all of the fuck ups on this record. Like, even like there's a moment where like the drums don't really do the thing they're supposed to be doing, but it like works.
Yep.
I love that. It's very DIY. It's very punk rock. It is what the ethos actually stands for. And I really enjoyed this one, man. It's a 7 for me. My standout is, I don't know, throw a dart at it. It's good shit, man. It's let's see here. I like Insomnia Karma. That's a
That's a
good
good
one.
one. You and I are on the exact same page with this one. I too am just loving this weird line of gazy emo, post-hardcore, whatever the fuck it is. I've never heard this band before. I'm a huge fan of their sound now. They are a fitting candidate for our MySpace song slash album of the week, which we award to the song or album you'd most likely find on MySpace back in the early 2000s. The title track is just MySpace core at its finest. Joy is has grown on me a lot this week. It's a solid 7 for me, but my standout is Private Room. I really, really like Private Room.
Good shit.
Really good album, man. We had a lot of good albums to talk about this week, this year. I'm excited to start parsing all of that with you next week as we start off with the best of EDM of the year.
That's right.
Make sure you guys are following along with the weekly rotating playlist. We're going to kind of have a best of mix up for the next week instead of our typical new music. It's going to be a really fun one. Make sure you tune in next week to see our favorite albums of the year, songs, all that fun stuff. You can find us on Instagram and Reddit. Just search Brandon's Face Pod, and we will see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.